Hello, in today's training program, we'll be talking about building a seller proposal. We all work with a lot of sellers in the real estate broking industry, and as we work with these sellers, we always have this challenge of presenting to them something of value so that we understand from them as to what they exactly want to work with us or not. What do we include in a seller proposal? The basic things that we just would want to include in the seller proposal are the details on Remax and you yourself as a person. You might want to include the profile of the office or maybe the profile of the associate and stuff like that. You'll also want to include the challenges faced by a seller. So we want to actually explain to him what are the challenges that he faces if he goes out in the market to sell the property by himself, and why he should work with a Remax broker associate, or why he should work with you as a real estate agent or a real estate consultant. How do you list a property with Remax, or how do you list a property with your office? You would also want to talk about the benefits of exclusive mandate. You would explain in detail all the services that you are providing to him, be it in terms of how exactly you are going to help him sell the property. We'll talk about the dangers of overpricing a property, and obviously you are going to talk about comparative market analysis report, which will help him understand the exact valuation of his property. And last but not the least, the procedure to work with you and how exactly the payment settlement process would take place. All of this are basic things that you would want to include in a seller proposal. And each time you go out to meet a seller, it is the same seller proposal with some minor changes that you would give to the seller and accordingly update him that these are all the various steps towards working with us as a while selling your property. So the first thing, we talk about the profile and the role of each person within the Remax system. So say for example, we can give a brief about Remax International. Say for example, there are 7,000 franchised offices, more than 100,000 agents worldwide, doing more than 12 to 13 lakh transactions on an international level. And that is what Remax International is. You can talk about how nobody in the world sells more real estate than Remax, and accordingly build it up so as to ensure that everyone actually gets an idea of how exactly Remax International adds a certain level of value into you as a franchise office or as an agent within the franchise office. You can talk about the quality assurance that is being provided by Remax, or you can talk about the accountability of Remax by having a 5 level hierarchy. What are we trying to achieve? The whole idea is to build trust and confidence into you as a person over a period of time in the mind of the seller. You can give a brief about Remax India also. Remax India, you can talk about it having say 100 offices or maybe present in almost all states of India now. So you can talk about that in a brief detail and explain to the person that how Remax India is also penetrating each part of the country and how we follow certain common standard systems and processes. The Remax regional office, and obviously then we talk about the Remax franchised office. That's your office, that's where you are sitting, that's where you as a part of a team are working, and how many transactions or how many team members or how many agents are there in the office. All of that adds value into you as a person, because obviously the seller is looking to build or do the transaction with you as an agent. He wants you to actually represent him in the transaction, but for representing him in the transaction, he needs to have the confidence that if not you, or by you. And that's where you have to build or give him that confidence that apart from me, there are these many people present in the system who are going to help me, support me, and help overall achieve the transaction in the shortest time possible. As we all understand, or as we all know, that each seller wants to sell his property at the highest price possible in the least time, as less time as possible. So that's where you want to actually support him and ensure that he's able to achieve what he wants to do, and accordingly build on the whole thing. The second thing what we talk about is basically the challenges faced by a seller. So the first challenge that a seller generally faces is the guidance of valuation. A seller has no idea as to what is the exact property valuation going on in the real estate market. Now, say for example, there are 10 different properties which are going on in the market or which are available for sale in the market. Each property has its own unique features. Say for example, a property may be 20 years old. A new property is coming up right across the road, but maybe the rooms are smaller. Maybe it's a high-rise tower, maybe it's a low-rise tower. Maybe it has a lot of amenities, maybe it has zero amenities. It's a furnished apartment, it's not a furnished apartment. Well-maintained apartment, not maintained. So there are 100 different factors which affect what you would call the valuation of a property. Now what happens is in the market or in the newspapers when it reads that okay, in an X area of a city, the price, the latest flat was sold at this particular valuation or at this particular price. The seller feels that his property is also valued at the same rate or is available, should be sold at the same rate. The fact remains that this is not actually what you would call the exact valuation, because probably the property or the individual property that was being sold was maybe an individual property which was the best property in the market, and that is why it made the news. That does not mean that every property in the market has such an increase in valuation. So a seller has to understand that it's only an expert real estate agent who can on ground understand the realities of the market, understand how the market is behaving, and it is he only who can actually give him a proper guidance of valuation of the property that he wishes to sell. Similarly, he individually, a seller has a limited network of agents. Now, when we talk of a network of agents, most what you would call sellers could be knowing 3 to 5 real estate agents, and these 3 to 5 real estate agents are the people who will actually be going in the market to actually sell the property for the seller. Now, say for example, you as a person, you would obviously be knowing maybe 100 real estate agents in the market, and these 100 real estate agents can actually work towards selling the property for the seller if the seller is going to give an exclusive mandate to you to actually ensure that you get the complete attention of the property. So the idea is that he has a limited network of agents. This limited network of agents means limited exposure to the property to probable buyers. And because the property has limited exposure to probable buyers, automatically the chances of the transaction going through becomes lesser. And that is what we want to avoid. And that's what you explain to the seller, that this is what will happen to your property if you're going to try to keep on selling it yourself. Sales requires continuous efforts. Now, when we talk about sales requiring continuous efforts, a seller can never devote 100% of his time to sell a property. What he is doing, he's obviously working in his daytime, he's obviously focused on everything that is going on in his family, and apart from that, at the same time, he's trying to manage to sell his property. So a sales person, like a real estate agent, is the only person who is actually able to devote full time to the property selling activity, because that is his profession. A seller has maybe his own profession and maybe something else. So at the same time, he cannot actually focus on selling the property. And that's what we mean by selling requiring continuous efforts. And that's the reason why individual sellers cannot actually get the best or do all the possible efforts to ensure that the property gets sold. Dealing and negotiating with number of agents and buyers is a continuous problem that sellers face. Obviously, as I just mentioned, that a seller cannot devote 100% time. He cannot devote 100% time to show his property to various buyers. He cannot sit with more agents and just keep on showing the property. It's a continuous effort and it requires a full-time consultant. That's what the seller should understand. Also, one very important thing about negotiation is that most sellers probably are selling a property 3 to 5 times in their lifetime. And when we talk 3 to 5 times in their lifetime, the point is that most sellers or most people individually do not sit on the negotiation table as number of times a real estate agent or real estate consultant would sit on the negotiation table. And that's what you want to actually explain to the seller, that I have represented maybe 100 different sellers in various transactions, and that's the reason I understand negotiations better than what you would individually be doing transactions as. And that's the reason why you should work with me, and I'll be able to negotiate the best property price for you in the transaction. Moving on, we talk about limited marketing exposure. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier also, he has a limited network of direct buyers or agents, and so the probability of finding a suitable buyer in the transaction gets reduced when the seller is working only with himself. he has to appoint ideally someone who will ensure that the property reaches to a wider market, and as it reaches to a wider market, the chances of the transaction going through just increase. Also, the legal paperwork process is tedious, is time consuming, and also requires some intricate attention which only an expert can provide. You, as a real estate consultant, somewhere have what you would call the expertise or at least the experience of working in various transactions, which you can bring on the table for the seller to ensure that the property gets sold in the right time. Moving on, why a Remax broker associate? Obviously, we are talking about you as a person and why you as a person should be able to actually go through the transaction. The first point is association with a brand. You obviously are associated with a brand which gives some kind of quality assurance, some level of what you would call accountability of service, and that is what you want a seller to experience whilst he works with an individual franchised office of Remax. So the idea is that you as a person are associated with a brand who is giving him a quality service, which he's not going to get if he does the transaction himself. We're talking of a global presence, which gives him what I would call maximum customers in a wider market, and that's what we would want in terms of a global presence. Customers of all types are present over here in transactions with Remax, so it makes it easy for what you would call the transaction to go through, because be it even one 2 BHK transaction or a land transaction or maybe a bungalow transaction, every type of customer is present in a Remax system, and that's what makes the system really scalable and really workable, because it ensures that every person is able to actually scale, show the property to multiple buyers, and then it leads to what you would call transactions. It also allows collaboration with brokers. As we talk about collaboration with brokers, we are talking of specifically understanding the way what we want to work in the market. Now, individually, we all compete with other real estate brokers, but when we work with other brokers, we also understand that if we have the seller with us, a competing broker might have a buyer with him, and that leads to a situation wherein the transaction going through, when you represent the seller and the broker on the other side representing the buyer, and the transaction just goes through because of that. So that's what we want to achieve, or that's what we want to do by collaborating with more brokers in the market and ensuring that we are able to actually take forward the transaction and move it into the transaction process. Similarly, there is no fixed cost involved in being a Remax or working with a Remax broker associate. All you require is what you would call success fees. And when we talk about success fees, it means brokerage that is being paid to the Remax franchised office or the Remax associate when the transaction goes through. So obviously there is no fixed cost involved while working with us. Similarly, you would also want to talk about you being a trained and professional agent or a company which is trained and professional agents being working over there. And that's what you would want to actually emphasize upon, that individually you might go out in the market, you might not get the right trained agents, but here I'm trained in real estate, I'm a professional real estate agent, and that's what I'm doing as a full-time basis. So as to explain to him that yes, this is what I do in the market. No motivation or monitoring is required, because this person is getting paid only when the transaction goes through. So obviously he's motivated, he's working hard to ensure that the transaction goes through. And last but not the least, each associate gets the possibility to have his own web space wherein he can list the property, upload the property, ensure that it reaches out to maybe 20 more portals, and on a high level it is ensuring that you are able to actually take it to the next level and move it to what you would call a transaction stage. So what are the ways of mandate in which a seller can get associated with a Remax associate? There are basically two types of mandates. One is an open mandate, the other is an exclusive mandate. When we talk of an open mandate, obviously you have well defined that what you would want to achieve in doing an open mandate type with the seller. And if it's an exclusive mandate, what would you actually want to do while you are working with the seller? So it's an exclusive mandate, it's an open mandate, you have it well defined as to what you are doing for the seller, and accordingly defining it while presenting to him that this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do while working with you in the market. when we talk about benefits of exclusive mandate, we have given a lot of weightage to exclusive mandates. The basic benefit, it results in a higher selling price. And as we talk about resulting in a higher selling price, it automatically means that you are exposing the property to more agents, to more buyers, which ultimately leads to all the buyers actually considering the property. And as all buyers consider this property for their living requirements, automatically the selling price that you get for this property is going to be higher, which you would want to actually achieve as a common goal for the seller as well as the agent. It allows the agents to put signages. Now the idea is that you are able to market the property more openly. So be it in terms of signages or advertising, you are actually able to give out the property details to more agents, to people in the market. A lot of time what we see in the market is that when individual agents are trying to promote a property which they do not have an exclusive mandate, they are not able to disclose the property details. And as they are not able to disclose the property details, they put it inside what you would call, they don't disclose the property, and they work as typically secret agents. And when we talk about secret agents, the secret agents are not actually needed in real estate. They are probably needed in what you would call a police activity or something like that. And the idea is that you want to actually market the property to as many more people as possible, so as to ensure that it actually is able to uh, give out the maximum returns as possible in the transaction. We also talk about giving more exposure to more agents. When we talk about exposure to more agents, we are talking about that you show the property to maybe all agents in the city, all agents in the market that you are operating, and also ensuring that more and more people in the market know about this particular property. So ensuring that it is getting the maximum exposure becomes really important. And last but not the least, the seller is better informed that what is going on in terms of the exclusive mandate, because the agent over here is kind of focused on selling this particular property. And as he is focused on selling this particular property, automatically the seller is able to, what you would say, get a daily update or a weekly update from the agent as to what is happening on the transaction. What are the various services that you are going to provide on the property? So you begin with all the basic services like preparing a flyer, like preparing a brochure, like if it's a bigger project or if it's a bigger kind of a mandate that you are having, then you probably are going to also talk about what kind of event based marketing that you can do. You can talk about your festival based marketing, what you can do in the local sub area. Say for example, in various cities of Gujarat, Maharashtra, or across the country, you have certain periods where people actually would want to buy property, and that's the time when you have all the builders or all the people in the market actually going out and giving various kinds of offers, and that's what you would want to mean by saying festival based marketing. Similarly, when we talk about web marketing, we are talking about ensuring that um, you are covering all aspects of internet marketing, which would mean Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, or creating the Facebook page for the property and marketing it, or uploading it onto your office Facebook page and putting it over there, and then marketing the particular property. So you would want to ensure that you market the property on an online medium as much as possible. As I said, web promotion, we also talk about print media. Print media, Times of India, in the Mirror, or what you would call Indian Express, or maybe the regional newspapers like Gujarat Samachar, Sakal, whatever you are operating in the local market, you have a basic idea as to what type of print media is giving the maximum results, and that's what you would want to do in the local market. Similarly, web promotion on Magic Bricks, 99 Acres, India Properties, Makan, wherever you have accounts from the franchise office, you would want to upload the property and accordingly ensure that all these places you are able to actually execute. You would also want to market the property to all the agents who are operating in the same area of where the property is located. Maybe you're also talking about ensuring that all agents in the city, be it part of associations or other top agents in the market, marketing this particular property to all these people. We're also talking about Remax network in the city, country, or internationally, wherever it is present. You'd want to put it on iConnect so that it goes onto the local agent website, office website, remax.in, or global.remax.com website. Similarly, you would want to ensure that because it is on iConnect, it goes onto the 15-20 different portals that iConnect is interlinked with, ensuring that the property gets maximum exposure immediately as it automatically works over there. You'd also want to put it on the BBM groups that are really active in certain parts, be it internal to the Remax network or external to the Remax network and wherever they are located. So the BBM groups are also an active source of getting what you would call buyer inquiries and putting your property requirement or details of the listing over there. Similarly, you would want to market the property to the corporates who are located in the area, so be it IT companies or non-IT companies. You're also talking of other sources of business owners and buyers, be it something like your lawyers, chartered accountants, maybe consultants of other nature. All of these are people who would have some basic idea of maybe where a buyer is located and helping you probably sell the property in a direct or an indirect manner. We are also talking of maybe email campaigns, SMS campaigns, or maybe conducting an open house. Open house has been really successful in certain parts, wherein what they do is they have a Sunday um, type of time, say 10 to 1 on a Sunday, wherein they show the property only to all the people who are interested in buying the property or all agents who are interested in seeing the property. And it becomes a really efficient way of ensuring that how the property gets viewed by maximum people without actually you spending time every time going there showing the property and working towards it. Instead, you are able to manage all the property viewings in what you would call one particular time slot of the week and ensuring that it goes forward in that particular way. Similarly, deal of the month campaign wherein you can actually show or create a small flyer of the property and send it across in the market saying that it's a deal of the month. Obviously, it has to be a rightly priced property to be considered as a deal of the month or put as a part of the deal of the month campaign. You can also do just listed postcards in the vicinity. Now, just listed postcards in the vicinity is something which has given excellent results in terms of attracting more listings and also in terms of ensuring that more and more people in the market know about your property and you are able to get exposure to the property by taking it forward. Also, in terms of signages, you should put up as many signages that lead to the property as possible because signages means that your brand also gets exposure and more importantly the property gets exposure. The idea is that signages or just listed postcards not only help you in selling that property but it also leads you to selling or getting listings of other properties in the market, which is what you ultimately want to build as a pipeline towards ensuring more transactions. You'd also want to put it in as a part of your franchise office newsletter, which automatically leads to what you would call directly being able to actually give the property maximum exposure in the market. And obviously, you are putting all the franchise as a part of the franchise office newsletter, you are putting in all the various properties that the different agents in the office have, giving a overall feeling that this newsletter is really active and this office is really active, having a lot of properties for sale, and also more importantly, on exclusive mandate, making it really good newsletter. And last but not the least, prepare a small presentation, put it on SlideShare, ensuring that you're able to actually get maximum exposure to the property as we talk about it in the market. Moving on, build your own checklist for buyer and seller respectively. Here, obviously, we are talking of the seller checklist. From the previous two slides, whatever you plan to do for the property transaction, that is what you want to explain to the seller and put it as a checklist that these are all the various things that I'm going to do for taking the property transaction forward. And that is what you want to explain to what you would call the seller to so as to ensure that these are the various things I'm going to do for you to take forward the transaction, and this is how I'll be able to sell the property for you. Moving on, we also talk about the dangers of overpricing. As we see in this particular graph over here, a property which is initially overpriced is something mentioned over here. And say for example, if you list a property which is overpriced and it is new in the market, it is fresh in the market, open to all buyers, it is at that stage that maximum interest or activity is created for the property. And because in the first 30 days the property is overpriced, all the buyers who come to see the property, all the real estate agents who come to see the property, all of them feel that this property is overpriced. Let me buy the neighboring property or nearby property which is priced at an average value. And as we talk about this property being overpriced, what you are actually doing is you are helping the neighbor who has priced his property correctly to sell the property by overpricing your individual property. And this is what you would want to avoid by ensuring that you do not actually overprice the property and instead actually give a fair price to the property on day one, so that at a fair price you are actually able to sell the property in a really fast manner, unlike a situation where overpricing it initially, and over a period of time what you would actually achieve is that over a period of time you are actually able to sell the property at a lower price, or you have to underprice the property, and more importantly you have spent a longer time and you have ultimately got lesser money. So you want to really be very careful in terms of overpricing any property, and what you would want to do is actually try to ensure that you always get the pricing correct in terms of what the property is, and accordingly explain the seller that why overpricing is not really what you would call what you should avoid is overpricing, and then take it forward. Always try to build a comparative market analysis for what you would call the seller. Say for example, we have taken a listing over here which is C101 Kala Residency. What you are trying to say is this is the property that is for sale by the seller, and you are giving him a listing price recommendation that this is the price at which you should list the property so that the transaction goes through. Now why are you listing this property at 80 lakh rupees is by giving him examples that similar properties of similar nature are available in the market. Either they are listed in the market or they have sold in the market in the recent past, anywhere between 75 lakhs to 85 lakhs. And that is where your property, which is maybe a decent property in the market, would probably attract a valuation of say something like 80 lakhs, because probably it is an old property, or maybe it's a building which is a high rise, but your property is on the first floor. So different types of considerations go into the overall valuation, but giving him a rough or a brief idea of what other properties in the market are, and accordingly ensuring that based on that you are able to give him a valuation or a recommendation as to what the property type is going to be, and accordingly helping him understand that okay, this is the type of valuation that my property can attract, and then accordingly building it up so as to ensure that he is able to understand the whole thing and then take it forward. What's the final procedure for working with the seller? You define the contract type with him, say in terms of what an exclusive mandate or a partial exclusive or maybe an open mandate. You define the deliverables from the Remax for the same. And when we talk about deliverables from Remax for the same, we have to be very clear as to what we are willing to do for the what you would call the seller, and what are we willing to do for him in terms of ensuring that what he is going to get and how the property would get sold. Determining the period of contract, how many months or how many say 6 months or 9 months or 3 months the period of mandate or period of contract is valid or not. Deciding the brokerage and other financials. The brokerage charge may vary from property to property depending upon type of contract, commitments, proportionate marketing and advertising expenditure, etc. So you have to be very clear as to what type of brokerage and what amount of brokerage are you going to get from the individual seller, and based on that you sign a small little document which confirms the same, which gives you a fee confirmation, which gives you a confirmation as to the amount of money that gets involved, and based on that you start work on the property transaction, and obviously then look at settlement of payments. When we talk of settlement of payments, we are talking of practically ensuring that the transaction goes through, and when we talk of transactions going through, we are talking about how exactly the transaction leads to you getting the money. So as we talk, we want to meet a maximum number of sellers, and by meeting these sellers, we want to go out in the market and then sell these properties and then take it forward by ensuring that you are able to actually go forward and receive your brokerage for the same. Thank you very much for your time. For any questions, you can always mail us at helpdesk.mgm@remax.in. We'll also be attaching or sending across a small seller proposal, which you can go through, edit it, make certain changes in it, and accordingly ensure that you are able to actually take it forward and then in the use and edit it and change, make the changes in it, so as to ensure that you can go out in the market and then use it to the way you want and give it to every seller in the market, so as to ensure that you represent or work in the best professional manner possible. Thank you very much for your time, and it's a pleasure working with you as always.